Hi, my name is Dorian, and this is You, Me, and the Industry, a podcast where I get to hang out with people from the games industry and talk with them about a wide range of topics. In this episode, I am joined by Liam Wong. Liam is a self taught photographer who previously worked on games such as Crysis, and he was a presentation director at Ubisoft. We talk about his journey into photography, and Liam shares some behind the scenes information on some of his coolest projects. Furthermore, we talk design in video games, receiving feedback, share our first impressions of the city of Tokyo, and we finally have the answer if Hideo Kojima and Liam are still in touch. Here we go. Hello everyone, welcome to the show. Today I'm joined by Liam Wong. Liam is an incredible photographer and a former director at Ubisoft. He worked on games such as Crysis, Far Cry 4 and 5, and most importantly, he's a former pixel pirate. He also recently released a book named Tokyo, which features his incredible photographers of the city. Liam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah,
Awesome, yeah.
going well. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty well actually. I think everybody is kind of chill these days. Like if it isn't screaming about wearing masks or anything, but most of the time people are chill, I guess.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, a little bit on the edge, some people, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to your podcast, really enjoyed them. And my apologies for taking so long to like get back to you to arrange a date.
It's no problem. I mean, how long was it? 10 years?
I think about that, yeah. It'll be 15.
Okay. Now, you know what? In the end, it turned out well, and let's hope this episode is going to be one of the better ones. They're
I mean,
all
fingers crossed. Yeah, no, they were great.
yeah, you're already doing way better than everybody else.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, what we usually do at the show is that we allow the guests to bring their own topic to the show. So, Liam, do you have anything you want to share? Anything on your mind? Anything you've seen recently or something?
I mean, we kind of said before the call. I remember I was like reading over the messages because there were like on and off like chats over the over the years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what you'd mentioned, we could probably start there. Like I think it was like Tokyo video games, making a book, Ikumi, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was like a
Okay.
good place to start.
Yeah, so then maybe let's start with the book that has been recently released. What did making the book taught you?
Making the book. Yeah, so I mean, I got into photography like for the longest while. I kind of thought, yeah, I want to make a book. And then I'm trying to think back now. So yeah, I've not worked at Ubisoft for almost 2 years now. But at the end of like just before I left, I'd finished on Far Cry 5. And after that, I wanted to kind of take a career break where I could figure out what I wanted to do. Because I had like some interesting opportunities outside of games. And I wanted to kind of give it a test. And I'd taken 6 months out. And part of that 6 months, one of the things on my list was to make a book. And I didn't really know the right way to go around it. But I just know that I wanted to try and make one, whether self-publishing or crowdfunding, etc. And ended up going down the crowdfunding route.
And was crowdfunding the basically the right idea for it, or did you think, well, I should have went differently?
No, it was perfect. It's like one of those things, and I know you have like a marketing background, so like you have an idea for a product, but you don't really know if anyone wants it. So that was kind of like the perfect platform to put out there, like no risk. If people like it, they can, put some money towards it and make it a real thing. And if they don't like it, you're not wasting your time developing something that nobody wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you also said that you have to readjust and rethink what kind of pictures you want to put in there and maybe how to colorize them. So, what is that process like?
The whole process, I had like really decent editors and a designer that I worked with, and we had a great like back and forth. So they'd actually worked on a lot of video game books. As a company, I think they were called Read Only Memory, and they did some like really good Kickstarters on like the old games like Sensible Soccer, I think. And I knew their stuff, and I just kind of had that confidence that they were the right people to move forward with. And so because of that, I never had this kind of weird thing to have to explain to a publisher like what my background in video games was, or like how we could use that to make it an interesting kind of pitch. And so they had all of that knowledge, all the knowledge of publishing, video games, etc., to bring it together. And so I guess over the period of around 6 months, back and forth, like iterations, proofs, different ideas, running stuff by like friends and family to get it to what it ended up at. But yeah, it was like a lot of like iterative process.
Hmm. Yeah, and in the end, you also got opening and closing words kind of by some of your idols like Hideo Kojima and Sid Mead, right?
Yeah, and that was like, I guess, like at the end of the day, I was just taking pictures for fun and just playing with the colors in all like bluntness. And at some point, it kind of became its own little thing. And I think especially like times like right now where people can't necessarily travel, I find that like I have like so many images of different cities and stuff where I can kind of share that and people, I don't know, it gets kind of like a hopeful thing. So for me, that became like this whole set of images where there just happened to be a lot of people that love Tokyo for obvious reasons. And with that came, yeah, the people I looked up to and the people that inspired me, and they were like happy to chip in.
Hmm. Do you think people now enjoy your content more? It's kind of they live vicariously through the pictures and the stuff you make.
Yeah, I think like, let me think about this. Yeah, when I think about, I'm on the street, so take a picture, I'm composing it, I'm thinking, oh, this will be cool in the shot. Like if I frame it like this and I have these specific items in it, I'll think about that. But then it's like after the shot and then after I edit it and all of that, and if I share it, there's like this whole other like life of the image where someone might feel inspired to create a piece of art or a piece of music. And that's been the best thing about, because obviously my background's in video games and I never ever had that like immediate feedback. You work on something for like 3, 4, 5, 6 years and then it comes out and you feel good when it comes out and it goes out there and you helped contribute towards it. But yeah, like the instant thing of taking a photo and like there's something about it that just really inspired me.
Hmm. Do you also believe that people kind of tend to overthink about how to put the like the filters on and stuff, or do you think nowadays everything is just basically all unfiltered and everything is just get pushed into instant Instagram and you really wish that people would take more time and to consider what to upload, what to release?
Yeah, that's like a very fair point. Like, because for me, like I never used to have like a following or anything. I never had lots of eyes staring at my work, and so the moment where people did, it's like, it's like scary, and to the point where it can like, stop your growth.
Yeah.
Like, you're not as inspired to go, and you're not inspired to share, you're not inspired to blah blah blah. So it's definitely like a thing. Like I think any artist, like mentally, they're always overthinking. You're overthinking everything, whether about like, and especially the day of social media of like, do I post at this time? Which hashtags do I include? Like I kind of got over that like mentally and I just kind of share when I feel like sharing. And it's easy to say when you have like a lot of people looking at your stuff, but yeah, it's always been one of the things I've been passionate about trying to figure out for people who are trying to find some kind of I don't want to say following, but find their feet in the area that they want to do. That's always been something I care about.
Hmm. Yeah, and how do you determine the perfect time to upload a picture or a piece of content?
There are like proper statistics.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I was at Ubisoft, like I sat next to a marketing team pretty much the whole time I was there. So I learned a lot about a lot of different types of things. But yeah, I mean, sure, that stuff can help you, but like algorithms are kind of evil anyway. I more think about like trying to find people that support your work and find something interesting about it and trying to build like a community around your stuff, like people that actually actively want to see your work rather than invisible people that you'll never meet.
And what is there something that you wish that you knew before starting your whole career into photography? Like one tip you would give to yourself?
Um, hmm. I mean, I never got to experiment with like different technical things. I was kind of like thrown in and it went great. But because of that, like, and I don't know if I ever touched on this, maybe like once in a talk, but like put it in the way of like I was taking pictures, and when I started out, they weren't, in all honesty, were not well captured images. I really lacked the clarity through the technical knowledge, like understanding how you can freeze a freeze a person in the rain at night, like when it's low light situation, is actually very technical, and it takes a lot of practice to get that right. And so when I started, I would kind of like butcher these images. Like they'd just be over edited and everything. And like over the years, I kind of gone for like a more kind of cinematic feeling just because I get inspired by film.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like one of those things of like if I went back, I would spend more time like actually just giving myself little tasks and challenges that could help me learn the camera better. I think there's always that phrase, it's like idea before execution. So like
Okay.
you have an idea in your head, but you're not able to execute it because you're held back by the knowledge that you don't have. And that's always the case with
Mm-hmm.
like anything that you start. Like you just don't have that information in your head, so you need to kind of work on it. And it's, like as a creative, like that's always where you're gonna have. Like if you have a song idea in your head and you think, well, I don't know how to play this instrument. Like I don't have these little pieces that will help me build this, but I know that I need them. So yeah, I think it's more like going back to basics and just having the time to kind of to really learn it. Because for me, like having all of those people staring at the stuff and really picking it apart is weird as someone that just wants to create stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And usually just putting it out there so that someone can, I take a lot of pictures of streets, cities, and different countries, and people are like, oh yeah, I remember a time when I was there, or like I remember I was that specific location. I have a good memory of that. That is a positive thing.
Mm-hmm. You just touched upon this, the importance of good feedback. I very well, I mean, I know that for a fact that you've got very harsh feedback when you graduated your school, right? Basically discouraging you from continuing something like art or something. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of yeah, sad to
but
hear that this
it's such
happened,
a
basically.
common story, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like everyone has been in that position. It's just more like, I'm sure like some of the best artists that ever lived probably never even made it to becoming an artist, and that's like the sad part.
Yeah.
Because I would never say like I'm a good artist. I'm good at I don't know, a bunch of things, but
Mm-hmm.
I see better artists all the time, better photographers, better art directors. Like
Yeah.
it's just there's no end to that,
Yeah, yeah. I also often hear people talk about that the best people don't make it, don't necessarily make it to the top. Like only like a selected few are also like really incredible at what they're doing, but they also kind of make it through and by sheer luck are able to push through all this yeah, this chaos around them.
I think it's sort of one of those things when people say like luck doesn't exist. Like luck definitely exists,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I guess that's like a complex topic to get into. But yeah, I think yeah, people are dealt cards more privileged than others, even myself, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to that, like I remember I was like I've given talks in different countries, and like some places are like obviously less privileged. And you're trying to think what information can I give to these people that will be helpful, that, that somehow they can, make it to where they want to be. Like it's difficult.
Mm-hmm. And do you sometimes really think about these the exact words that you're using, or do you think that you know what maybe something you're telling people in front of like an American audience will be
Yeah.
taken differently in other places?
And I think that comes back to what you're saying about like feedback. Like you can give a
Mm-hmm.
talk or you can do a podcast and someone will say like, well, I don't really agree with what you said there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's valid. It's like, and that's feedback. And you think about it and it changes your perspective in a positive way where you think like, yeah, I never thought about it like that, but you're right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I
Yeah.
mean, feedback when it's like constructive, I think, yes, obviously, I mean, if someone asks for it as well, it's obviously welcome and they can take it on board.
Yeah. I think what I find so interesting about feedback these days is that at one hand, it can be really helpful, but I think you also need to really be strong enough or like yeah, sure enough to say, you know what, I thought about it and I don't disagree with the criticism, and
Hmm.
I can still live with myself basically, even though like maybe some people were very harsh or even made like good points to them and valid points maybe, but you still don't agree with them. I guess this is how to separate these things.
Yeah.
You just yeah, you recently touched you already touched upon this in the
Hmm.
in some question before, but yeah, you said you were sitting next to the marketing team for a long time. So is there anything more that you learned? I was always very interested when I heard you talk about this, that you learned a lot of lessons there besides the yeah, you basically talked about them, the challenges they had to overcome.
Yes, I think with video games, one of the things I became like most interested in was like visual identities. So that when you have an idea for a game and you have there's so many different aspects, whether it's like the audio, the game design, I don't know, the world itself, the environment, the art direction, the like all these little elements come together, and you have to then present that to somebody that's never heard of it and doesn't care about it. But by understanding the things that they care about and understanding your game, there is a way that you can, like make it, I guess, marketable, but make it appeal to the right people. And I think that's something that I definitely took on board and I used in, example, like my photography stuff for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like having that kind of insight, like knowing your followers essentially. And so I think one of the things I get asked a lot is like, how do you get like some big social media following? And it's in reality, like everyone has to start from somewhere. I used to always share stuff that I just loved, like a lot of film screenshots, and I don't do it so much these days. But like stuff that I like, and people like that stuff too, and then people start to follow. It's not necessarily about the art, but it could be like, I love this video game. Here's some screenshots I took. And then suddenly you have a community that didn't exist. And so I think there's like something just really nice about that on a small scale, that when you're starting out and you want to have people more than like your mom and dad look at your work, essentially.
And is there a video game where you love to take screenshots in? I think like nowadays almost every game has like this Photoshop mode, like photo mode or something.
Yeah, so I mean, so the funny thing is I never had a PC until this year. So because of the quarantine stuff, I was traveling a lot, like just different little projects or just travel stuff. I don't know, I just went to different countries. So like last year I was in Korea, Japan, China, some places in Europe, some stuff for talk, some stuff just for personal. And so like through that, sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Okay, no problem.
Through that, like I used to travel a lot. And so when I came back, I was supposed to come back from Japan into Europe for some events, and they all got cancelled. And then I was just stuck in the UK. And I'm from the UK, I'm from Scotland. I don't have the accent, obviously. But yeah, I'm like half like Malaysian Chinese, half Scottish. And so came back home essentially, and then I got like an office space set up, bought myself a PC, and through that I've just been playing a lot of games like during quarantine. And I got really into just taking screenshots of games, but as an artist, like I'll just run up stuff and just look at it in the game, and I tend not to actually play the game itself. Red Dead Redemption 2, Call of Duty Warzone, even Animal Crossing, and I'm trying to think what else. Played a lot of Fortnite with my nephew. So yeah, I've just really enjoyed like playing video games like right now, like cause like I spend so much time traveling, like so much time just outside, walking around like all day, and it was great. It's like it's amazing, but I never had that chance to kind of slow down. And so now that I've done that, like I literally just play games on my downtime, and I didn't have that before.
And do you play on the go? I know that you played Florence, for example.
Yeah, that was a great game. Like I never like, it's a weird one. Like mobile games, I just was never into. And that was one where I played it and I was like, damn, like that's really impressive. Like to pull that off, for me to want to play it all the way through. And it's not a long game, but yeah, I was just like very like moved by it. Because I was like, wow, that's a great way to deliver narrative on such like a smaller scale. And so many just nice little touches, like from the art direction to the audio, the interaction, like perfect.
Yeah, it felt very intricate to me. Like everything was very thought out in the end, I think.
Yeah, and I played like a few others because I actually ended up buying the Apple Arcade thing and just trying a bunch of different games. It was a great one from us too.
Yeah, Monument Valley.
But it was like Assemble or something like that. That was great. I love the art. I'm trying to think what else I played. Inside.
Oh yeah, I love that game.
Like I completely avoid. I remember being at GDC, so I think it was even at GDC we kind of talked about. It must be like 2018 or something, and they did a talk, and they had the title as like how we did the blah blah blah. Like I think it was blanked out.
Yeah.
And I just completely avoided it and avoided all the spoilers, and then played the game, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Because at first I remember playing it, I was like, how did this take so long? Like I think it was like 6 years, and I was like visually incredible, like beautiful, simplistic, but just like on point. And then like the game, just the way it unfolds and stuff, I was just like, wow, blown away. Top 10 kind of feeling,
Yeah. And is there any game or series that you think has a very strong, like very incredible visual identity, something that you're very aware of, but don't get as much appreciation as it should be?
Hmm. That's a good question. Because as you were doing the question, I was like, well, Mirror's Edge is like my top tier,
Yeah.
like the art direction, everything, the character,
Hmm.
the world, everything, like lighting, everything about it is just like incredible. They get stick for the game
Yeah.
itself not being great,
Hmm.
great experience, blah blah blah. But I loved it.
Like a game where you say, "My God, like people need to like, how can people not see the brilliance of this and that?"
Yeah. Hmm. I'm trying to think because most of my games, like the games that I play, are like mainstream.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Um, I don't know. Do you have any recommendations?
Let me think about it. Oh, let me. Oh no. This is not really curveball for me. Let me think. Games that I think maybe smaller games like Ghost Trick, for example, which I can't speak about the visual identity, but like the animations are so fluid and smooth, and I think it also has a very strong personality wise through the art and how it is displayed. So maybe I would say this, but I'm not quite sure if it's even the right answer to your question. So I'm not as informed to visual identity.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I mean, even something like Animal Crossing, I think excels with its visual identity. I guess.
Yeah, of course.
Hmm.
I mean, like another favorite of mine is Life is Strange.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I loved that game. And a lot of people, like I've mentioned it to friends and they're like, oh, it doesn't look that great. And I'm
Uh,
like, it is great. Like I love the world. I love the
yeah.
music. I love
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
art direction. I love the UI. It's just got a great feeling and it's
Hmm.
just so well done. The cinematics to the gameplay to like the story, like everything was just, I really wanted to play it like start to finish. And it
Hmm.
rarely happens for me to get like that, especially narrative games.
Hmm.
I usually get bored and put stuff down.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, loved that game.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, let's maybe jump back in time to
Sure.
2005, where you first went to Japan. Was the first
2015, wait,
15,
2014
14,
was the
15,
first time. Yeah,
14?
14.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think it was the first time you went to Japan for 4 weeks.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah, for sure.
yeah, so yeah, I like a lot of people ask about like what you did there, and yeah, we all know you took a bunch of pictures there, and you didn't have a camera with you back then, but you took some pictures with your phone. But
Hmm.
I wanna ask you because I traveled to Japan a few years ago for the first time.
Hmm.
I wanna quickly talk about like first impressions, like food, drinks,
Yeah.
like something that you just picked up upon, because like we all grew up with stuff like like, I guess anime and games and stuff, but it's so different when you're actually just there in the country.
Yeah. So I guess like the weirder, like I grew up on anime, but like the mainstream stuff. I
Hmm.
never was into like my friends were, and they would occasionally like lend me DVD, like VCDs or whatever, that I would watch and check out. I find it weird that like when like maybe I was like a teenager, they were watching like Evangelion. Because I
Hmm.
think about how messed up that is.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, I would go home and watch like The Simpsons, and that
Okay.
was it. And they're out there watching Evangelion. I was like, damn. So like for me, like I never grew up on like Japanese games as such, and I never grew up on like anime. So
Hmm.
for me to turn up, it was kind of like a last minute, like, hey, do you want to go do this? And I was like, well, sure. And I don't know, because of that, it like just it had this whole feeling for me. Because I'm not like a super outgoing person. Like,
Hmm.
and so having that opportunity where someone's like, look, I believe you can go on a stage and talk about this game. Like, I think you can do it. And we trust you to go all the way out there to do it. And I was like, shit, okay. And yeah, it was like life changing. And it's such like a weird thing to think back to. So I remember like the first time going there, I literally had no idea of anything other than like Shibuya Crossing.
Yeah.
I remember I asked it, like I put on my Facebook, like, hey, I'm going to Tokyo. I don't have recommendations. And then they were like, yeah, you can go to like Harajuku. This is a cool little spot. And I was like,
Hmm.
huh, never heard of that. I'll check that out. I don't think I even went. And then, so it's kind of, yeah, it's like weird thinking back because, yeah, it's like 2014, 15. It was like two different trips. And so, yeah, like I think the weird thing is like turning up there and like not knowing the language. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
for me, like I lived in Quebec and I knew French, but not like I could read French, but
Hmm.
I never felt confident speaking it. So like turning up there and living there for like 5, 6 years, I was a bit more comfortable with the idea of going somewhere and not understanding what I was seeing.
Okay.
Because it can be really off-putting. Like I have a lot of friends in America who are just like, well, I would never go because I don't know how I would order food. I don't like
Hmm.
very small things that you don't really. I guess once you travel and stuff, it becomes a bit more normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, like even like that. So I was eating at like basic places that just happen to have English menus, which is kind of a shame because you're not taking in everything that's amazing about any city that you go to,
Yeah.
like trying like what's their top dishes, what's the best
Hmm.
place to
Hmm.
go, like stuff that's maybe not tourists, like known by tourists, but recommended by locals, like little
Yeah.
things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so for me, like turning up in Tokyo, yeah, of course it's like overwhelming because I didn't know like a whole lot. Like I'd seen a bunch of Japanese films, and it was kind of
Hmm.
like my knowledge of Japan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how was it for you?
Well, the first time I arrived there, I was so blown away by the just the amount of respect in the
Mm.
society. This is something I can like I always keep talking about. Like I think it's the food and then the respect. I think but also those two go kind of hand in hand. So like even like I went to a bunch of food places and even though it was just a small ramen shop with like two guys and one was like smoking during the cooking and everything, like it kind of felt to me like those two people were basically channeling everything they could like they didn't hold back anything like this is the best thing we can do with like our produce and with our skill and our knowledge and this is like the best we can do and it really feels like almost like something they channeled into the food and then they want me to experience it through them. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
like interpreting you wrong, but
No,
it
I have the
really
same
felt this way.
experiences.
So and I was so blown away by this like yeah like sense of honor like I mean people now always associate like samurai with that, but I think just the Japanese people in general feel so like yeah intertwined with everything they do.
There's just like little things like I have like memories of like just going to places where, it's like a small little diner just owned by like an old woman, old man, and they'll serve you the food and
Yeah.
like they'll back up without like they'll face you and walk
Mm-hmm.
backwards
Yeah.
so that they don't turn their back on you. And it's like little things like that where you're like, wow, like when I lived in Canada, it was I don't know, the service wasn't great.
Yeah.
And you have to tip there. And
Yeah. Relatable.
coming from the UK, like you don't really necessarily tip, but the service, in my experience, is pretty good. And then you go somewhere like Japan, and you're just like, wow, this is some next level stuff. I've never had a bad meal there. I've never had bad service
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, I actually said, I think to a few friends of mine, like Japan is, I think, the only country. I think if you only went to Japan or to Tokyo, I only went to Tokyo,
Hmm.
and just went out for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you went back like straight back to the hotel and played games.
Yeah.
Like even though you just did that, I think you would still go back and say, you know what, this was a really worthy trip, like
Yeah.
because it's so incredible. I think it's so yeah. Like,
That was basically what my first trip was because I
yeah.
think it was like 2 weeks. So I
Okay.
had like the first week for business and I took the
Okay.
second week
Mm-hmm.
for our vacation. And basically just ate food and walked around and took
Mm-hmm.
pictures. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and then you went back for this 4 weeks, right, with your first camera.
Yeah. So it was, I'm trying to think, it feels so long ago now, man. Yeah, like 2014 was like Far Cry 4.
Yeah.
So I went there for that. And it was at the end of 2014. And I
Okay.
went back a year later. So I basically saved up cash and I saved up all my holidays, knowing that I wanted to go back and spend time there because I'd been to, I think even like that point, I think when I moved to Canada, I got to travel a lot, and that's kind of what got me into taking pictures in the first place. But
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that Tokyo, I was like, I need to go back there and I need to have a camera. There was just something about it. I was just like, I need to do it. And yeah, I remember like asking like different friends for like recommendations because I get that now, like, hey, which camera do you think, this camera or this camera?
Yeah.
Except I was like that person. So like back then, I
Mm-hmm.
remember asking them, and they're like, "I think that's too expensive. I don't think you need that. I think you should just
Mm-hmm.
get something you can afford." And I ended up just saving up for something that was quite expensive. I can't remember how much it was, but yeah, it was like a couple $1,000
Mm-hmm.
or something.
Didn't you get a camera from the video you saw? The what's it called? The Memories of Tokyo, I think.
The camera?
Yeah, I
Oh
think.
yes, yes. So there
Yeah.
was this yeah, exactly. So I was looking up like different because I didn't know anything about cameras,
Mm-hmm.
and all I could go by is like my eye and what I could see, and think I want to take pictures like that. I want to do videos like that. So this is great. You should probably link it in the little description that you do. But yeah,
Yeah. Awesome.
I think it's Memories of Tokyo, and it's on Vimeo, and it's a
Yeah.
cinematographer. I think he's like a visual effects artist in
Mm-hmm.
film, and he just did this for fun, and it just some shots in it I just still think about it, like to this day, where I'm just like, wow, like it's just incredible. And it's like even just the frame, yeah, just great. And I was like, there's something about it. I was like, I need, first of all, I need his camera. So I need that
Yeah,
like specific one. Because how could I possibly take pictures if I didn't have that?
exactly.
Because I
Yeah.
want to do videos because you could do like raw,
Mm-hmm.
shoot raw video on it if you modified it. So it's just really good quality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it would hold up now if I looked at that same video like today, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like the actual quality of the video, but the content, yeah, great. Just love it, like loved it. And I think that's like just a great example of like, because like when you work in video games, it's like very easy to think to not see like the bigger picture. Like you're sat there day in and out for years, and you have to kind of just believe that it will go out there and enough people will like it and
Mm-hmm.
support it so that you can make another one. And so yeah, with like something like that, I'm sure that guy just made that video for fun, just as a hobby. I think it's like his girlfriend's in it or something. But that inspired me to want to create something, and I think that's like key to why I create stuff and why I wanted to get into video games. Like I think it's just such a nice thing.
Yeah, and you said you went for 4 weeks, I think, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I spent a month there.
Yeah, so how does one plan for a trip like that? Because you were really eager to go there. Did you read any what do you call like guides and or just like reading on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, back then, I think like the main thing I did was because I don't necessarily always do this nowadays, but what I did back then is I basically went on Google Maps and I marked all the areas of interest. So I was liking this. I think I've mentioned this before, but it's like Zelda, like Breath of the Wild, where you're
Mm-hmm.
marking your own little waypoints, stuff
Yeah.
that you find interesting. I was basically doing it on Google Maps from like, okay, here's a landmark for architecture. Here's a bar I'd like to try. Here's a ramen place that people recommend. Here's an interesting street that has a shot of Skytree or something like this. And I mapped all of them out on Google Maps so that when I turned up, I would basically try and cluster them and be like, okay, I'm going to do this today and I'm going to see like 10 of these. I'm going to walk from here to here to here. I don't think I even took the subway. I never even had a JR pass.
Oh,
I would
okay.
just really walk everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from like, yeah, like, just being intimidated by like language.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I spent a month. I think it was supposed to be 3 weeks and ended up extending it or something. Because, yeah, like, when you work in like AAA, most companies, especially, as a director, you'll get time off after a huge project. So I just spent all my days in Tokyo.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, you already mentioned that people ask you about the equipment you use and stuff. But I always wanted to ask, what is the most important piece of equipment that is not related to camera stuff for you?
I mean, my first thing is to say your eye, like, like having like, it's a small thing, but like for me, even like being an art director and trying to think, how do you have a vision? And really it just comes from like training your eye over time and having some kind of taste sensibility about things that you like and you dislike visually. So for me, like for photography, like camera equipment aside, which is obviously something I get asked a lot, it's really just to like be aware of the things that inspire you, like to really break down what it is that what makes your brain tick, because I think that's like one of the most beautiful things about when it comes to something like a style. Like what is it about you that you can put into your work that will always be there? Like you can, you're not going to wake up one day and be like, well, I was inspired by this one thing, but I don't like it anymore. So now I don't want to create anything. So I think when you have like a lot of different things that you like, you can kind of balance them and figure them out. So I think like having a good eye for things, like I personally don't think it's that hard to kind of train that. You always see these threads of artists are like, here's my work from 10 years ago, here's my work today. And later
Mm-hmm.
10 years, maybe it didn't even exist, or maybe it's like literally a scribble on a piece of paper and suddenly
Mm-hmm.
they're like art director at like ILM or something, like
Yeah.
I think if you put enough passion into something that, you'll always find something there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is there something that you wish people would know about how you create these shots that people actually never get to see? So maybe something where you stand in the rain with an umbrella for hours or something, and you're like, I'm pretty sure I can get this shot sometime, but I'm still standing here for like the next 30 minutes. Or is there something like, yeah, you want to share?
Yeah, so like Yeah, there's an interesting thing about something like Instagram and especially photography, because it's so easy to see an image that's like, say, popular and be like, right, I'm gonna go and recreate that shot. And I'll go exactly to the same place and I'll take the picture and I'll try and basically like replicate it. And it's
Yeah.
a weird thing that honestly exists just mostly on Instagram, I find.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, what like over time, something I always wanted to get good at was taking pictures in the rain. Like I just love like when it rains, like I legit go out. It's like an actual meme level thing, but
Hmm.
I just feel inspired and I like it because there's usually nobody around. And anyone that is in the rain often wants to just escape it. Like
Hmm.
so they're not they know I mean, they're always going somewhere. They're never just stopping like me. So in terms of street photography, it becomes like an awesome focal point. So I remember like Saul Leiter, he's like a photographer, incredible pictures of like rain and mood and texture and all of this. And I think when I look at images, or when I used to look at images, I would never think about all of the things that got them to that point. So like you're saying, like standing in the rain, like the very first time I went out and took pictures in the rain, I was like, wow, it looks cool. I'm gonna go take some pics. And
Hmm.
then literally like all my stuff was soaked.
Okay.
Pretty sure I got the flu.
Yeah.
Uh, because like I would do this all the time. Any country I was in, I would just go out and take pictures, and I would often be like freezing. So like over time, kind of simplified my approach and made sure all my stuff was waterproof uh, to get a shot. And so when you look at an image, like some of my shots, like the rain looks kind of frozen. You can see like each individual droplet, and I'm usually standing there holding my camera, trying not to get it all damaged.
Hmm.
The umbrella over me, maybe a huge poncho on me over my backpack just to get the picture. Like, and I think one thing I would have touched on was just like, when people steal images, like,
Hmm.
so imagine you do all that, you have all this gear that you've saved up for, maybe you're going to damage it in the process to get some shots during one night, and someone steals a shot. And like, that's the weirdest part of like having a bunch of people that follow your stuff is like that stuff, like, like you've messaged me over the years or whatever. Like I think pretty much every week, every second week, I usually have to file like DMCA claims to basically have people stop selling my stuff.
Hmm.
And that's crazy because I was just a game developer and like, you just want to make games, and then suddenly I'm doing this whole other thing I didn't have much knowledge on and having to deal with a lot of like random topics like that.
Hmm. Yeah, and also sometimes, I mean, back in the day, it was still your hobby, but a lot of people's yeah, like wealth or like income depends on these pictures. So I
Yeah.
guess it must be really yeah, soul crushing when they see, I don't know, like some random knockoff brand to say like, you know what, oh, we have the new Liam Wong collection here, and it's just
Yeah.
on like a 5x5 pillowcase or something, and just like, you know what, this doesn't look like, this picture wasn't even made for a pillowcase in the first place.
I remember like I think I just got I got a bunch of Instagram messages one time, and people were like, "Hey, check out this stream," and I was like, "Okay." Pressed it, and it was some dude like streaming in Taiwan, and they were selling my picture on a phone case in some phone store, and I was just like, "Wow." And I ended up like donating money to the guy on the stream because I was like, "Well, I don't like I'm not gonna go and contact some company in Taiwan and say, hey, can you not sell my image?" I was like, "It's too much effort." But I was more happy that they'd recognized it was my image. Like I was like, well, that's kind of cool. That's kind of what I was aiming for. Like,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like photography's been great. Like I just love it. I still love it. Like it's just such a good outlet to be creative. Like I can't recommend it enough to like anybody just to kind of capture things that you care about.
Hmm. Yeah, and you all went back, of course, after your trip to Tokyo and everything changed. After a few years, you also went back to Edinburgh and took pictures of your city and how it impacted your yeah, perception of how cities look and like capturing the essence of a city. So maybe you can elaborate on this.
Yeah. So when I think, I'm from Edinburgh. Have you been to Edinburgh?
No, never.
Okay. So do you know much about it?
And not at all, but I think, yeah, I heard it's very lovely and a nice looking
Yeah,
city.
I used to like do talks and I would say like, I come from like Scotland, like one of the biggest games is made there, and they'll be like, no idea what you're talking about, and it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what, GTA, and they're like,
Hmm.
oh shit, I never knew, and I'm like, yeah, because it's like a weird city, like because you don't appreciate like you never appreciate where you're from,
Yeah,
It's like when
totally.
you're like young and you'll go to like a friend's house and you're like, wow, their house is so cool. My house is trash. It's the same thing for like cities. I find like I just never appreciate Edinburgh until I think when I would go to like America and I would go to some of those places and I would just see no like green space, all buildings like, and I really loved the huge buildings in like mega cities because I never grew up around that. I grew up in like a city where there was basically a castle on a rock in the middle of town and the gardens and stuff. So very beautiful, very like picturesque, basically like Harry Potter, Hogwarts. But yeah, like when I moved back, like when I kind of left my job, I'd moved back to Scotland before I was traveling. And yeah, I just like got to appreciate the old town, like the history that you have. Yeah, old architecture especially, and then just realizing how you can kind of channel that. And I see that a lot in film. But like when I was starting out photography, like it wasn't like as common. Obviously, it's super common. There was still people doing stuff like where you try and color grade a photograph of street photography to kind of communicate how it feels. Um, but yeah, it just kind of, I don't know, just got me inspired to kind of think, well, how does this feel? Okay, it's like a cold night. It's like this. Maybe I go for this kind of mood. But there has to be something in the shot that kind of enhances that.
And do you think, like, if you would go now back to game development,
Hmm.
would your whole view now have changed? Like when you think back when you were on Far Cry and something like
Yeah.
Crisis, do you think like you would now channel vastly different thoughts into your process?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, because obviously, like stuff I learned in video games, I applied to photography, and I think, like, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've interviewed at companies since, like, I've left, and
Mm-hmm.
I could, like, as much as I was like, I love video games, and I would love to work in video games again at some point, but it would have to be the right fit. And like, I've interviewed at places, and they basically said like, oh, we don't really know if it's not about being like overqualified. It's about having too many interests, and they're like, it's a weird thing because like I never had someone be like, right, we really want you to take this job, but we're worried that you also have like a second job basically, and it takes up a lot of your time,
Oh yeah,
and you
oh
would
yeah,
like
totally.
basically like leave eventually. And I'm like, well, yeah, I wouldn't say which company. It was a company I love. I love their games. Interviewed
Okay.
there, and they were kind of like, yeah, like it's just like one of those things of you worked at Ubisoft for a long time. That's why we're talking. And we're looking for someone to be at our company for as long. But they brought that up, and I was like, wow, okay, see you later.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I guess.
Because like
Yeah.
if I worked in video games again, like I would love to just be involved. I wouldn't even care about title. I would just love to be involved about like whether sure do photography, do cinematography, do trailers, do a
Mm-hmm.
bit of world stuff, do user interface. Like I love UI, I love graphic design. So I mean when I left, like one thing I always wanted to do was make my own game, and I bounced like some little things around. I just never had the time to kind of see it through yet. So I think that would be like higher up on my list than like going back to work with somebody else.
Yeah, and this is also somewhat related. Do you think if you would apply, like, let's just turn the dial back and like, let's say you only have 2 years of experience, like you did back in the day. Do you think now a company like Ubisoft would hire you?
It's a good question. I guess because I don't work there anymore. So like I think one of the things is like I think that's why I try and give advice to people because like over the years, especially like people that went to my university often message me and ask for tips like, hey, I've been offered this much from this company. Do you think it's a good deal? And I'll basically be like, no, it's actually a really bad deal. Like they should offer you at least this much
Okay.
based on your experience. And because you're a graduate, you should not be taking a junior position, like I don't know, like assistant position, internship. Like I'm actually like really put off by companies that can do that.
Yeah. Kind
And
of
so yeah, I just think like
exploiting, right? Kind of exploiting the people.
yeah, because even when I think back, like I worked for Crytek, and I loved my time there. But in retrospect, like for me to want to move up, like I just had the idea that I would like to be a lead someday, and it eventually led to being I'd like to be an art director someday. And so when I was a lead, like I was doing all of this extra work, technically unpaid. And I remember back, I think it was on Twitter. I must have said it at some point. Someone was like, "Oh, I'm not really sure you should be doing stuff unpaid." And I was being paid because I was in a salaried job, but I was kind of giving up my free time to work on a AAA game, which sounds, it's like in retrospect, really messed up. But it's just like the way the industry is, like, there's so many universities, different degrees that are specialized in games, and it's very difficult to land a job. I don't know. It's something like I really actually do care about. Like, I think being able to pass on advice, whether it's like networking, like, using something like LinkedIn to reach out to people and ask them for advice without coming across as like giving your life story. Like, people are often there to help. And there's so many people in games that if one person doesn't help, I'm sure another one would. And so I think it comes back to like, I don't know, everyone's got to just play their part and help others kind of get jobs. Like, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and you just touched upon reaching out. Do you have a recommendation for a very ambitious podcast host to reach out to other people from the games industry?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's like an obvious one.
Oh, really? Okay. I never used LinkedIn for that.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I feel like it's less popular these days, but everyone's still on it. And I think, like having just a short message to say a bit about who you are, have your link, and see if they get back to you. Obviously, we did that, and we didn't ever sit down and do a podcast. But yeah, I think like at the end of the day, you've got all of your podcasts there, and there are people that are high up in the industry. You've got stories to tell, and they're really interesting. And so I think it's being able to pass that on to people. Someone will see it and be like, yeah, sure, I'd love to be on it.
Yeah, so there's a sort of segment I do sometimes on the show. I call it behind the scenes. So can you give us a little behind the scenes of what it was like the entire process of meeting up with someone really famous? Like let's just take Pom Klementiev from like the really famous actress who started like Black Mirror and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Do you like how do these events, or like not even events, like how do these meetings go? Do you just DM her, or did she DM you, and did you I don't know.
Yeah, so like she'd followed me at some point, maybe it was like a couple of years ago or a year ago, I can't quite remember, but then like kind of just reply to stories wherever, like, oh cool, this is nice, whatever, but or like just leave a comment. She'd be like, oh, I like this image, cool. But I think at one point she was coming to Japan. And she was like, hey, you're going to be in Tokyo. And I was like, well, I wasn't like planning on it, but I was kind of on the fence about it anyway, because I had some other opportunities. I think I was going to spend Christmas in the UK. And then she'd messaged me, and then I had some other people, like some games people and stuff. And I was like, you know what, I'll just get on a flight and go. Because yeah, at this point I wasn't at Ubisoft. I was just working for myself. I actually got to travel to take pictures for CD Projekt for Cyberpunk, which was cool. That was like a dream, like crossover of like just being able to be a developer who's taking pictures for another developer but has some kind of background. Like, it was great. So after I finished that, I was kind of like just chilling, because it was like day in, day out, just walking around taking pictures. So out of the blue, she messaged me, and then I was kind of like, well, I always wanted to take more portrait pictures. And like when you have someone that is experienced in that, it's like the easiest way to learn. So I was just like an actress and a model. And I was like, yeah, sure. But yeah, because this was like not that long ago. Yeah, around Christmas time. Maybe it was New Year. I can't remember now. I think it was Christmas. Or was it New Year? I forget. New Year. So yeah, she messaged me, hung out. And I think, I've met people that are like obviously like well known, and obviously like, yeah, like, it's just intimidating because I don't know them. You don't know what they're going to be like, and then you feel like a nobody compared to them. And so, yeah, someone like that, I just remember thinking like, right, yeah, I need to make sure I take some good pictures.
Yeah.
And it's also like you're like meeting like one-on-one with somebody that people recognize on the street. So I'm walking around with like 2 cameras attached to me, and people are like, isn't that woman off of Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh God. And then, yeah, I mean, the pictures turned out great, and she was super nice. So it's just like, we went for dinner and like drinks, and then just took some pictures in between. And yeah, it's like such a weird thing, because obviously, like when I was working at Ubisoft, I would meet people that were like high up, and then I'd go into work like the next week, and people would be like, what the hell? And I just feel like, yeah, I know, like, it's a bit bizarre, but it's happening. So I would just kind of go with the flow. But yeah, like it's always like intimidating, because then you're like sending pictures to somebody, and I'm like, I'm not experienced at portraits. but I also am not like I don't actively message people to go and take more pictures. I just kind of accept it if it happens.
Mhm. And is there any PR hassle, or like, do you have to go through management and through like, is there anything do you need to do, have the pictures verified and
Oh no,
double
not at
checked and
all.
everything? Oh, okay.
Literally just like on like WhatsApp, just like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Which ones do you like? And she'd be like, oh, I really like this one, and I like a bit of this. Um, have a play with these and like send them back over, and I'd send them over, and she'd be like, oh, this one looks sweet, and I was like, wow, cool. Because yeah, it's always like intimidating when you're like you're an artist and you're sending something to somebody. Even like being an art director, I'm like always like just nervous to get, because you never know. Like, and I like usually, and that's something I've learned a lot from like just doing freelance, is like usually I'll try and send like a selection, and I'll always say like, this is the one that I really like. I think this one is like the best of the options. Here are some additional ones. So there's usually kind of like dampens that, well, these are all terrible and I don't like them. Not that I've ever had anyone say that, but like, I think you always have to kind of go, here's a selection of things. It's some kind of variety, whether like it's specific to portraits, like close up, wide, like full body shot kind of thing. Like you always need a selection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is something I also heard very often artists speak about, and I mean, I also kind of get this every time I edit an
Mm-hmm.
episode. I'm always my harshest critic, and then when people sometimes say like, you use this word too much and use this,
Yeah.
and your mouth sounds like this, and I'm always like, I know this. I
Yeah.
edit the show, so I'm like, yeah, always thinking like, I think yeah, it's also very nice that when you release something to a different person and you think, oh, I think it's kind of terrible, but then then they really love it. Or I mean you must know this for sure, that you release something and then people are so positive about it and they don't see the flaws at all, and you see them, and you kind of wish they weren't there, but then you sort of sometimes get to just live with it, I guess.
I think it's the thing that I'm kind of more accepting of. And it was definitely from like photography and having like social media profiles and stuff, is that like not everyone is going to like your stuff all the time. And you're going to have people that are like vocal about that. And you're also going to have a percentage of people who, just by seeing an image or like, watching a talk, like they really responded well to it. And so it's like trying to understand that. Like I think if I think back, I think back to like university or something, and let's say I did a presentation, I really messed it up. I would just not stop thinking about it for like weeks, and I'd probably still think about it like today. I'll go to sleep and I'll think, yeah, I really fucked up that presentation in second year of university where I did this, or like I think it's inevitable. But like I guess also some people don't even think about it. They can just sleep easy. But yeah, I mean, I try and stay like in the positive mindset of like if I did something like a talk, or if I put out an image that someone saw it and it reminded them of something, or that someone saw it and it motivated them, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, this is the next question is related to the question after that. So do you speak Japanese at all?
Yeah. So let me think how to answer this. So like basically I know phrases, but not like I never had the time to study it,
Okay.
which is so like I guess weird. So for me, I was like working full-time job in games, living in Canada, and I would basically go to Japan when I could. And anytime I went, I'd have a translator. And so it became this kind of what's the word? I can't even think of the word. Basically, it just became like a normal thing to have a translator. And so
Okay, yeah.
because of that, I never had the time to like properly study it. So like since going freelance, like I do actually want to get like lessons and stuff. Because that kind of leads on to, because I remember you mentioned like Akumi.
Yeah, exactly. That was basically my
Yeah,
next question. Yeah.
so she was like, I think I'm trying to think back. So yeah, another person just happened to follow me. Oh yes, no, there was the E3 event, and I recognized her name because I think she'd done the Bayonetta logo. So like I'm in a graphic design stuff, and I think I remember I was like, I've heard the name before, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh, she's done the logo. And I think I replied to someone like a mutual's tweet, like, oh yeah, like Akumi's like really talented. Not only is she this, she's this and this. And then I think at some point she'd I just see the notifications because this was like post E3 after like her huge thing, like where she basically became like a meme and everyone loves her.
Yeah, exactly. The Queen of E3.
Yeah, like absolutely. And so yeah, I mean, because it's rare to to be in a position like that high up and have to have done so many different things, and for just to be in that position, like it's just doesn't happen a lot. And so for someone like her, I just remember saying like, yeah, her stuff's amazing, like because people were saying, oh, she worked on this. I was like, yeah, she also did this and this. And she follows me at some point. She was like, oh, like I love your photo. We used it as inspiration for the game. And I was like, holy shit, like that's and I love like that because I've had over the years like people take inspiration but maybe not say it. But in video games, people have been like very I don't know, like very open about it, and I love it. So it was like NeoCab. They actually put me in their special thanks, and it was on like their dev blog as inspiration and stuff. It was like my friend Pedro. There was even like Stray, that game. Like there's just so many like I love the fact that I've gone and done something else and it's somehow linked into the stuff that I used to do. So anyway, like when she was like, oh yeah, we used all your stuff as like reference. I think it was one of the concept artists that it was like, oh yeah, that's Liam's stuff. That's his comment or something like that. And she followed me and I was like, holy shit. And then I think it was like a joke of like, oh yeah, we should go and take pictures or something. And then we actually ended up taking pictures. And so I met her while she was still working for Bethesda.
Yeah,
Yeah, Bethesda. Tango, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I met her and like there was a concept artist and I think it was a 3D artist, environment artist. Met up with them and I was like worried because I was like, oh no, like I'd like know zero Japanese, like other, like I just don't. And so I was like worried because I was like, because what if her English is like not great as well? But
yeah.
Like I'd kind of had that experience from photography where I'd met people who were like musicians in Japan who or like photographer, like a big photographer I met, basically knew zero English and I knew zero Japanese. And those experiences, like I just have like such good memories from it because it's like, you're like there, I'm like being creative. So they do what they do and I do what I do. And we don't really need language. We're just communicating like visually, especially with photography where I can show the shot and they'd be like, wow, that's cool. I never thought about that. They take a shot, blah, blah, blah. Or it's like a model posing, like just something really cool about that. So yeah, when I met Akumi, I don't really put my face out there. I used to like when I did video games talks and stuff, it's pretty out there, but I don't like being like a personality. Like I just don't, it's not for me. So when she met me, I just don't think she had any idea what I looked like. And I remember we had to like send each other a selfie. She was like, yeah, I look like this. I look like this. And she was like, oh, Liam-san. I was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I think I went for dinner. And then we ended up like taking like photographs together, not just like me take pictures of her, but yeah, she brought her camera as well. So we're just kind of, yeah, it was just super cool. And it's just like one of those things that just happened just because of photography. I think if I was just a game developer in Canada, it would never have occurred. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and the language barrier wasn't an issue there?
No, not at all. Like her English is great.
Yeah, I guess this is almost the end of the episode. I guess I have to, since I'm one of the biggest fanboys of Metal Gear Solid, I think I need to ask this question. Like do you are you still in touch with Kojima at all?
Yeah, I met. When I was in Japan, I met him just before I left. So yeah, because he'd done the book stuff. That was a weird one because I had like copies of the book, but I wanted to get him a special edition. And like in one of each version, because in Japan they love to like give gifts, and I was like, well, I have to give that. And so then, yeah, we met at his studio and kind of like just talked about like things we were working on. And then he signed me the Death Stranding book, so he actually gave me like 2 of them, so I have an extra one. I didn't think what to do about it. But yeah, like so I met him. I don't know. I'm just always like shitting myself when I meet anybody like that because. I don't know, like I'm not, like some people are like very personable and they can just be like super confident. For me, I'm like, I do find it like intimidating, but I'm just kind of rolling with it.
Yeah.
So like meeting him, like showing him the book and having him go through it, and I'm like sat there. I have like a picture where we're in one of his meeting room and it's like the glass reflection. I can see myself taking a pic and him like looking at me whilst looking at the book. And I was like, damn, I can't believe I made a book. Because I grew up, like I did play like MGS when I was a kid, my older brothers. And so it's just kind of like, like a surreal, like full circle thing. And
awesome.
Yeah, and that again, like came from photography and it's like, just like bizarre, but awesome. So yeah, I mean, met him and he was really liked the book. And then, Yeah, I had his quote on the Japanese version, so I had to like speak to him about that, but they all went through. So yeah, I was super happy.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, like, to be honest, I would really love to interview some of the people around him. I think I never saw an interview by like Ayako or like
Yeah,
Shawa. Like I've always thought it would be so interesting to interview these people also. I think I mean of course I mean if somebody would offer me Kojima I would take it in a heartbeat.
yeah,
But I think there's also something to be said about the people that are surrounded with him. I think
yeah.
his assistant has been his assistant for like 15, 20 years or something. I don't know, like for some crazy
I
amount
would
of
I would
time, I
love
think.
to know like just like from a production standpoint, like
Yeah.
their day to day, like how do they manage? What do they do like all day? How do they manage all of that? Because for me as like an individual, like it gets so much to do that just appears. I don't have an assistant, and I don't
Yeah.
plan to have one. Because
Yeah.
but when you have an assistant, like what do they? Yeah, it's crazy. It's like an extension of you, and they have to know
Yeah.
absolutely everything and be able to organize and orchestrate it all. Like that would be a great. I would love to hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, like I mean, even like just like managing his tweets and Instagram stuff. I mean, this almost sounds like a full-time job already. Like just his social media stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, okay, so I guess then it's time to wrap it up.
Sure.
Yeah, you once gave the advice that people should surround themselves with talented people,
Yeah.
and I guess this is what I basically every time with the podcast, and I think it worked out just perfectly this time again. So Liam, yes, thank you so much for this interview.
Yeah.
Is
Thank you
there,
so much for your time.
yeah, is there anything you want to plug besides yeah, I mean your social media and your book? Anything upcoming?
Not really. I have stuff coming up, but not ready to like share it yet. I
Okay,
like to kind of sit on stuff and be like, not not quite there yet, but
okay.
sometime.
Dropping the bomb anytime.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Okay. Yeah. I will of course link all the social media jazz people so people can find you. And yeah, if you want to follow me or the show, I am Dorian Chow. It's DorianChou on Twitter and Instagram, where I usually post yeah, terrible pictures of my drawings. I don't know. Have you seen them? Some of them?
I seen your avatar. Is that by you?
No. Oh, no, no, no. The avatar is made by one of the first guests I had over here, called El Huervo, and I basically did it like this. I asked him to just based on my voice, what he
Oh,
thinks
really?
I
Okay.
would look like.
Wow.
And I love that. I actually would have thought about doing it with you, but I'm not sure if you've seen my picture, and also I'm not sure if
I'm
you're.
looking at it right now.
Oh, okay, okay. So, yeah, if you would be, I don't even know if you draw a lot yourself.
Yeah, I do draw.
Oh, okay, okay.
Did he just make up that hair himself?
Yeah, I mean, like, do you look at the Twitter picture?
I'm on your, yeah, I have your Twitter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like my full
Everything, like
screen right
everything,
now. Nice.
the way the hair comes, and yeah. So I loved it so much, and I decided to use it as my Twitter profile.
Nice. I wonder what
Yeah.
people think I look like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I know what you look like, but maybe you should ask that on the next podcast. Sometimes if people didn't do that or something. Yeah, but this is like I said, this is what I usually do. Not this time, because you also said that you should get out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and I wanted to take a picture in the style of the mighty Liam Wong.
Okay.
So I looked at your pictures for a long time, and I also asked a couple of design friends, and so I will go out and once the episode goes live, I think like maybe like a couple of weeks from now, I will
Yeah.
also publish a picture alongside with it, and then you can tell me what you think about it. And of course, I mean, I know for a fact that you did a picture in your book just using your phone camera and the phone editing software. So I might be lucky in this regard. So I will try my best to kind of emulate the style of yours.
Yeah. You want a tip? Just make sure you put the highlights down. You have more colors to play with.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Great. Then I will, of course, I will begin with that. But you will also have to do something. You can recommend the music I'm going to listen while I'm outside. I know you would usually just go to Makeup and Vanity Set, which also released a new album recently. But is there something else? And also the name. Should I just use a Linkin Park song or what should I do?
I'm thinking what I've been listening to recently. There's a great song that I like. It's by Forest Swords, and it's called Crow.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Then I will try to channel the essence of the music and your style into the picture. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you liked the show. Leave reviews, subscribe.
Yeah, sure.
press the bell. There's no I do have a YouTube button, but do everything you want, stay positive, take pictures, get Liam's book, and reach out to everybody and be nice, all right,
Yeah,
everyone, take care,
be positive.
bye.
Thank you.